Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Al Getler here. I am so excited to be here today. I'm so excited about our guest. I think she's just going to be so much fun and so fabulous. And you saw her there. There she is, Candy Parks, the L words, lessons from lots of research. She's got a really steep background. So many people have been saying nice things about her on LinkedIn. Hope it's all true. We'll find out in a minute. But already we're here. And Reiner, thank you for joining us today. Hello to you. Glad you're here and good afternoon. So I'm talking to you from northwestern Vermont, where you're never going to guess what it's doing outside. Yeah, it's snowing. So and my guest is going to taunt me because Candy is on the opposite side of this. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I got to tell you, the other day I put this slide up and I talked about the fact that I had taken a fire truck. I'm a volunteer firefighter at EMT. Up to get serviced, and when I got back to my truck after the servicing, there was this bag. Said thank you on it. Had some crackers, a little peanut granola, and a keychain. Right? I mean, under $2. Incredible. But point being that they didn't have to do that. I mean, they didn't need to kind of help me transition from waiting for my fire truck to getting in it and driving back, but so appreciated. And what I love about it too, you notice this brown paper bag is literally a brown paper bag. I mean, it's not like professionally printed at some print house. It was done up with a black magic marker. Those three things dropped in, the hat and the keychains there just for dramatic effect. Very, very cool. And you know what? It's a reminder that there are so many ways to delight the customer, and they don't have to be huge. They can be small little things. Which brings me around to my guest today. Candy Parks is a 17-year Disney veteran. She's a researcher, does lots of research on all types of things, which she's going to share with us today. She was out 10 years on her own. She's now a part of something called the MagicMakers Group, which I want to hear more about because I'm fascinated by what that is. And I think you're going to be fascinated by it as well. I mean, I'm kind of playing dumb because I know several members of the group. So without any further ado, live from Florida, Candy Parks. Hey, Candy.
Hey, howdy do. Yes, I don't have snow. I have lots of sunshine. Unfortunately, as I just realized, you can see through the glare, but
That's okay. Tinkerbell's getting covered up by glare. It's all right.
Yeah, you know what? You got to love a sassy sprite. I mean, she's my spirit animal. So
there you go.
I have lots of tink around, but
well, let's qualify this right out of the gate, Candy. I have my wide shot. Oh, Mickey's not quite in the shot today. Mickey's right over there. You can't quite see him. I'll fix that camera later on. We'll bring him back. But yeah.
Oh, Mickey's. Wait, I got to figure out which way to point. There's
a
Mickey.
Yep.
And then there's Captain Mickey from the ship up on the top.
And then you have my favorite Walt statue of Walt and Mickey.
Partners in Excellence. Yeah.
Yeah, every time
it's on my top shelf.
Yes. Actually, I have one up there too. It's a sad story. We'll talk about that later. But I every time I am at Disney World with my family, I have got to take a picture in front of that statue with my daughter. So it's really, really kind of great. So Candy, I am a giant Disney fan. I'm a late bloomer. I didn't get to Disney World until I brought my two older girls there later in the 90s, and was absolutely miserable when I went there. I was just like, ugh, this Disney's going to just take all my money and it's so expensive and it's just going to be terrible. And man, was I just immediately overwhelmed by the wonderful world of Disney, right? Well, okay. Write that down. Anyway, I was just so amazed. So tell me a bit about your career with Disney. Give us some background on who you are. And then, I want to really get into what it is you research and how all that came together.
Okay, sure. And by the way, that thing you experienced, we call that pixie dust. You got pixie dusted in the park.
Did I ever? I almost got thrown off the boat between the parking lot and the Magic Kingdom. So
you're one of those.
That's how miserable I was. Yeah.
So I have been a researcher for going on 35 years now. I actually started in public education, working on research and evaluation, managing large scale assessment programs, things like that. I know I don't really fit that mold. And now, once I left, I actually got recruited to Disney by somebody who used to be at the school system. he went to Disney and then he got to know the culture and whatnot. And he's like, oh my gosh, I have somebody you need, So
Wow, nice.
yeah, it was. I mean, it was awesome. And so when I went in, um, it was like total culture shock to go from working in public sector to private,
Sure, yeah.
and to go from doing very academic research, lots of, there's rules, there's a right and a wrong, and your goal is to get published, and it doesn't matter if anybody does anything with your work, you just do the work.
Right.
And then I go to Disney, and it was almost like I was like a rabbit at a dog track. It was like they just took my feathers off, and I was like, "Whoa, man!" It's like a whole new ball game. And suddenly, you could break what I would call the rules, but it was, what I figured out very quickly. And not that anybody was necessarily doing it, but it's like at Disney, I was doing work to solve very specific problems. So they
Right.
had, there was a question, there was a this, there was a that. Actually, I was part of the startup team that created the guest satisfaction measurement program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which was hard. I went to Disney in '95, and it's hard to believe they didn't already have it. They had like postcards that resort guests would send. They had that kind of thing. But
digital changed all that so quickly. I mean, and really 95, you're just getting going on consumer digital. So
that's true. And also understanding systemic stuff. Because I mean, Disney had been such in a big build growth, so I was part of that design team. I didn't do it by myself. I was part of a team. And through that, I learned and met all the people at the parks and the resorts, all the leaders. Greg Emmer was the vice president of the Magic Kingdom at the time. And I'll never forget, he taught me the fine art of park walking. So when I went to do my meet and greet with him, he's like, all right, grab your sunglasses, let's go. And he goes, leave your stuff. And we walked the park for 2 hours, and he had his little notepad, and he, watching him interact with cast, interact with guests, things he noted, it was like totally amazing. So
and see what I want to, you say that I want the notepad. What did he write down?
My gosh, he wrote follow-up items, and he wrote, it was stuff he wanted to make sure he remembered when he got back to the office. And it was just really, that was like amazing to me, because later on in my career, when I was doing work on things in the park, I hearkened back to that, and I dressed as a tourist, and I went and I walked the park, and I watched things, and then I would go straight from there into a management meeting, still dressed like a tourist, hair in the ponytail, sweaty, and say, okay, I did the map twirl for 5 minutes. Nobody came to me. I followed two of you who, by the way, are sitting at this table. And I saw you walk right past the trash and not pick it up off the floor. And I went to, this station. I gave change. They didn't say thank you. They said no problem, or
Right.
And I'm like, no, this is not, no. And it was like, they were just like, oh my God, this just happened in the park. And it's like that kind of stuff was super impactful when nobody's expecting it. It didn't cost any money. And likewise, I saw incredible situations where I'm like, and let me tell you what this guy did that was just so simple but over the moon, kind of a thing.
And people think of this as stuff you just read about, and just to kind of support two things that I've experienced where you just talked about as a tourist. One is that miserable day when I went there for the first time, and I was, sure I was going to break the Disney system down. First of all, I brought gum in, which doesn't even encourage Disney at all. But I put one of those little silver wrappers right in a little planter, like, when I was sitting along the side of the concrete, and I said, I'm going to get back in a couple of hours, and that's going to still be there. And of course, it was not, So there's one experience. And the other was just recently, we took our family down, and I wanted to bring my granddaughter to the restaurant in France there. The name just escaped me. But the little rat from Ratatouille used to be there, and he was an animatronic, and the guy was a brilliant puppeteer that would make him, do all kinds of things. It was just a fantastic technology piece. And it wasn't there anymore. It had been removed as an attraction. I didn't know that. So I happened to just ask the manager, what happened. I was so upset. Not upset. I was so disappointed. I wanted my granddaughter to see it, blah, blah, blah. So we're having dinner. We're having a great time. Didn't give it a second thought. And he comes over, obviously French accent because they employ a lot of people in Epcot from the native countries. And he says to my granddaughter, "I have a gift for you." And he, from behind his back, pulls out a little ratatouille, the little Remy character, and gives it to her. And your heart just melts. And it wasn't on my bill. It wasn't. I mean, that's just, to me, as you say, the walking around stuff, incredible. So anyway, I'm sorry, I had to interject.
No, that's okay. No, those are like the millions of things that happen that I did a whole research study on wows, like what makes a wow, because you'll hear people just go, wow. And we were like, and I actually, part of my study was I could quantify, and if somebody had a wow moment, what that impacted from a business perspective in terms of their likelihood to return, their likelihood to recommend, all that stuff. And then I did the flip side. What's a woe? The wows and the woes.
Yeah.
And it's, part of what I loved about working for Disney is I could do what made sense. So based on who I was trying to learn from and what I was trying to learn, it wasn't like you pull out a research dictionary, step 1, step 2, step 3. It's like, some of my favorite stories are from Disney Cruise Line. I was part of the startup with that. And every time we launched a new itinerary, every time we launched a new ship, even doing ship design, I was involved a lot in ship design. But when the Magic first started sailing, of course, we were learning a lot as we went, because we were really the first truly family cruise line. Well, I needed moms, but they're on a family cruise, and I didn't want to interfere with their vacation. I did so much research in the Mickey pool, which is the toddler pool, because that's where the moms were. They were there with the kids.
Of course.
So, And when I needed dads, I went to, at the time, what was the ESPN Sports Bar, hung out with the dads, ate wings, learned everything I needed to know. Yeah. So, it was, and I had the freedom to do that. And then also, because it was relevant, it was authentic. So then when I'm talking to the shipboard team or to the shoreside teams when I got home, it made sense. I'm like, look, dudes, I was in the moment with these people. It's just really, really powerful. And
speaking of powerful, let's just underscore. I don't know if you can see the comment on the screen. Lee Kitchen says, "You don't make a move without consulting with Candy first." And Larry Stopper says, "Great to see you, Candy. So your fans are coming out of the woodwork." And then he agrees with Lee that nor did I. So I'll put these in order. Lee says, "Consult with you. Don't do a move without consulting you." And Larry said, "Yeah, you don't do that." So there you go.
Larry was the bomb. Larry and I took some great trips together. And Larry actually, I did a lot of work for Larry. He would send me places. When we were investigating new ports or new experiences, Larry sent me out, and he, said, I need the guest perspective on this. I need to think about this, so before he could put together his package and pitch it, he'd be like, what do you think? How are our guests going to see that kind of a thing? So I got to do some great travel courtesy of Larry Stopper. So thanks, Larry.
But I mean, and we're going to get into some models here you're going to show us in a minute. But one of my observations, you're a researcher. So you mentioned going to the, what did you call it? The Mickey pool? Is that what you called it?
It was the toddler pool on the ship. We called it the Mickey pool because it looked like a big
ESPN bar, we talk to men. But something I learned pretty quickly when I met you, Candy, is you're not really a wallflower, So part of your job is you've got to not only like people, but you got to like figuring out what people like, or what they don't like. So is that a big part of what you do as a researcher?
It's a huge part of what I do. It's what they like, what they don't like. It's also, from a business perspective. So depending on who my client is, it's concept and product testing. What will the market bear? What do they want? What do they not want? At Disney, it was a lot about experiences. How many times did I do work for WDI where they were, what do we do to Epcot next? Do we do this? Do we do that? Do we do this ride, that thing? You test that stuff and figure out what is it people really want and what's going to draw them in. And then you get into things like, and what are they willing to pay for and what do they expect to be free? I mean, that was a tough lesson on the ships. If Rob Malden or Jim Heaney are on, I'm sure they'll be piping in real quick.
Yeah.
But one of the most monumental decisions we made on the ship was to get rid of the single biggest pain point, which was charging individually for sodas. It's a
Wow.
huge revenue line item.
Yeah.
Huge. I mean, there's a reason no other cruise line does that, right?
Right.
And so we were like, you know what? But it's the right thing to do for our guests, our base. So they had to switch the model, figure out how to keep the crew whole, how to keep the service model intact. And oh, by the way, there was infrastructure issues because now you had to add ice stations, and so
Sure.
it wasn't a simple call, and it had financial impact. Now it paid itself back
Mhm.
pronto, but those are hard decisions to make. But
Right.
when you actually listen and you can zero in and understand what the long-term impact is, what the psychological impact is, which by the way impacts how people part with their wallet, um, those are good decisions, ultimately good
Yeah.
decisions to make. So that's why I love what I do when I can see things happen as a result. That's one of the reasons I wasn't super excited being in academia, because you don't see results. I would put together a beautiful report and it sat on a shelf as a bookmark, half the
Yeah.
time. Whereas at Disney, like, I mean, the guys are being very nice and they're flattering, but it was like half the time I could barely get it done. And they're like, hey, can you get on the phone? I mean, I'm on Castaway Key and they're like, get her out of the water. We need her on the phone now. Cause it's like, I'll be back tomorrow. I'll write you a report. No, we need it
Yeah.
now. And it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
but you know what? I would rather have life be like that
Yeah.
than do work that nobody cares about.
Oh, of course. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the
So
way, well, we have a viewer that says thank you. So that's nice. Thanks, Kevin. It is interesting when you say the absorption of information, and you used the word culture before when we started, and I always think about culture. I think about an experience I had where I joined a new company and I said, "What's the culture?" Well, we really don't have a culture. And I thought, what? But you mentioned culture, and obviously Walt was the one that really started that culture, and that curiosity is the thing, the information piece of it, that I just, I love when I read about the way Walt was just never, and he wasn't never happy about, being miserable. He was never happy because he always wanted to be better, you know?
right,
And
right.
so that's that culture of tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And, I just think it's an incredible thing. So we titled this today, the L words. And I think we ought to get at it, and talk a bit about some of the findings you've had in your research.
One of the yeah, there are, and it was like I told you, I'm like, I didn't realize I was such a fan of alliteration, but I tend to use it a lot. But in this particular case, it really makes sense, because I don't remember if it was you or somebody else said, what's the key, what's consistent? Because I mean, I had obviously have done a lot of work for Disney, and within Disney, a lot of different business units, a lot of different departments, and then outside of Disney with a lot of other companies. So
Yeah.
obviously a lot in the travel and leisure, but also in retail, financial services, sports.
Mhm.
So I've done a lot of different things, but there are certain learnings that are just consistent. And
Yeah.
so like when you're talking, I do not just consumer stuff, I also do employee stuff,
Right.
employee engagement. And one of the things I am constantly trying to teach or remind leaders is the single most important thing you can do is listen.
Yeah.
Listen to your employees, because it does so many things. When you listen to them, first of all, they make you smarter. It conveys respect, which helps build trust, which
Right.
strengthens your culture. And unfortunately, so many leaders believe that listening or asking for input from others, whether it's their employees or their consumers, they look at it as a sign of weakness. It's
Hmm.
like, I'm a leader, I'm supposed to know or my
Right.
answer is the one that counts. And if I ask or I open up, does that make me look less strong? Or does
Sure.
that, they worry about, and it's like, no, that actually makes you incredibly strong. And oh, by the way, just because you ask doesn't mean you have to do what they say. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you never know where that really great nugget of information is going to come from.
Right. Right.
And what we learn over and over again is when you connect with the people that are closest to your product and closest to your guests or your consumers, they are invaluable. They are your most strategic asset that you have.
Yeah.
So it behooves you to listen and learn, from
Right. And that goes to that walking around piece you talked before. I forget that, was it Doug Iverson? Was that the
Hammer taught me.
yeah.
Yeah.
That walking around part. I mean, well, we know the In Search of Excellence, Tom Peters, management by walking around. And part of that is not only walking, but stopping.
Walking, stopping. And I mean, he would stop and coach, like right there,
Yeah.
or give feedback. I saw what you did there. That was great. Here's a thing for a free burger, kind of a thing. He was just on. But if you want to put up, I think I made you a slide for our.
You did. So you want me to put the round one, right?
Yeah, the continuous improvement cycle. So whenever, and this works, by the way, for consumers as well as employees. So the first step is always ask. You got to ask the questions, right? So what is it you want to know? And the counsel here is, don't ask something you don't want the answer to, right? So if you're doing employee studies and you know that benefits and pay are off the table, do not ask a question about it, because you're setting an expectation. Right. So you need to ask, right? That opens the door. Then you need to listen. You need to actually listen to what they say. So I've been in sessions before where, you get the leader all prepped and they're going to have a feedback session, right, with their employees. And so they'll ask the question, but the minute somebody starts talking, they're like, well, wait, no, this won't work because, or no, that's, we already tried that. Or they're immediately shooting things down. And you could watch after 5 minutes, nobody's saying anything, because it's like, who wants to? So you got to, I'm sorry, shut up and listen. You got to ask the question, and then you got to be willing to just back up and let it come. You just got to let it come. And some of it will infuriate you. Some of it will be idiotic. I think about doing focus groups, and some of the things I've heard, some of it, you're just like, are you even in the same meeting I'm in? You just got to let it come.
Yeah.
And, let it happen. And then you need to acknowledge it. That's the third step. You need to thank people. We did this huge cast excellence survey at Disney. You need to ask questions. You need to listen, let them give the feedback. You need to acknowledge. You need to say, thank you. I appreciate that. It's not saying I agree with you and I'm going to do everything you said. It's saying, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing that. Or I know it may have been hard for you to give that kind of candid feedback or to speak to me. Because when you think about employees, I've been in different companies where it's like, they never even see senior executives, much less get a chance to talk to them or say or do something that they might actually see or hear. It's scary and it's intimidating. So you need to acknowledge.
I mean, it just is a mystery to me as to why that is. And yet in the Disney culture, I have noticed that it is, it's a dominant way of managing, Lee Cockrell, who I got to know years ago, really stressed that as I've gotten to know him over the years. And even in his retirement, the guy's still busy, but when little old me goes down to Florida, he always makes time to have lunch with me. And it's that cultural thing that I realize that a guy like Lee has. Giving time is just part of that culture. So it's amazing.
Oh my gosh. When I first joined Disney as a relatively junior leader, he made time for me. He called me in and, and I was just like, first of all, I'm thinking, oh, holy God. It's like, he was wonderful. I mean, he was just absolutely wonderful. And then when I left Disney, I remember going to the quote Lee Cockrell office, which is a Starbucks down on, whatever. And it was like the man just has it. I don't know what it is, but he has it and it spades. And I'm sorry, his son, just like him.
Dan's amazing. Yeah. Just amazing.
Man, there's some good genes in that family. But anyway, so you ask, you listen, you acknowledge, and then you plan. You got to actually figure out, what am I going to do with this? And the answer may be nothing, but you need to, hopefully you're going to get some information out of there, either to improve your guest or your customer experience, or to improve your employee engagement, or to, on the ships, it was captive. They're not just your employees, they live on the ship. So you had to really think about their off time and their off spaces. And it's like, so what are we going to do? Right? What are we going to do? Then you need to actually take some action, right? If you want people to continue giving you feedback or bothering to take your surveys or participate in your research, you need to actually take some action, some action. And then you need to communicate it. And by communicate it, you're going to go back, especially to employees. You're going to go back to them and say, hey, I asked you this. You told me that. We did this. And I thank you. You get the credit. Give them the credit for actually providing the input. Or, hey, we did this for our guest. We changed this. We, changed this product orientation. We changed this. We, whatever. But tell them what you did. Don't expect that they're just going to know, especially sometimes the little stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If maintenance really wanted a certain kind of rake and you finally got it, make sure they all know they got it. And it's because somebody asked for it.
Well, it's interesting.
All over again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a guy named Donald Miller who's got a book recently, Business Made Simple. He calls you in the communicate part of your, and we'll go through each step again, just for anybody that's just joining us. But that communicate part, you communicate and you communicate and you communicate again and you communicate again and you keep communicating. And just about when your staff's getting sick of hearing it, people are starting to hear it. And finally, when you're getting sick of hearing yourself say it, that's about when the message is being received. And he said that you are the CRO, the Chief Repeating Officer. And I love it. Yeah.
That's right. You need to keep repeating stuff until it becomes doctrine or until it becomes the water cooler talk or, because then your employees or your guests, then they become your advocates and you don't have to keep repeating yourself because it's so ingrained now.
Yeah.
But if you'll show the other slide.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to recap this one first.
So I'm sorry.
You say to ask, and be sure you ask what you want to know. You say to listen to what people say, and let them. And like you said, sometimes you're not going to hear things you want to hear, but you're going to hear it. Acknowledge and thanking people for their what their contributions are, planning with what you've heard, acting on what you've heard, and then communicating that out to most especially, the frontline people who have to deliver that. And before we move on to the next model, I just want to put something up here, which is a good time to ask this question. First of all, before I go on, Larry Jacobson says his favorite Disney character, and I'm assuming that is a compliment, I think for sure. But here's Lee's question. He says, Candy, how important is it for you as a researcher, plus your project team, to walk in your consumer's shoes, aka actually pretend you are one and the experience, the product you offer as your consumers do? So, in other words, literally put yourself in the consumer's spot. How important is that?
Oh, it is critical. And Lee knows that because Lee does it too. And in fact, Lee and I did a lot of that and cross-shared. If I'm studying something, if I'm working with a home improvement store and it's about closet stuff, you better believe I'm going to not only every home improvement store near me, because I want to know what they've got, but I also want to know what the competitors have and what works and what doesn't from my perspective. I'm going to do all that before I ever bid on a project. Yeah. It's like I want to know. It's immersion, the process of immersion. When we, at Disney, we were working on a packing study and because we were trying to control the amount of luggage that came onto the ship.
Yeah, sure.
And then also deal with a guest issue, which was, I really don't know how to prepare. If I've never been on a cruise before, I'm not sure. So, I went to people's homes and packed with them. I was in their bathrooms, I was in their closets, I was under their beds, I was in their kids' rooms. It was like, wow. I went through the pain they went through. And it was, but you got to. It's like I could have asked people those questions and they would have told me, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw happening. And the fights, oh my gosh, the fights that happened in these families when, it was, So that became a whole initiative.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Walking, if I'm doing website stuff, I'm going to be all over their web. Barry, you saw pop up. We were working on a project for a client in Australia, and he went through, web wasn't even the part of it. He's like, but I wanted to get a feel for this client. Get their, sense their personality, etc. So it's like, that's all ways to do it.
Yeah.
How many clicks does it take me to get to XYZ? Because now I'm having a better sense of the frustration somebody might have. It's hugely important. And you know what? That's one of the things that I find outside of Disney. Sometimes one of the things a client is surprised by is how much I get into their business. Not like in their business, but it's like
No, I'm with
Well,
Gina Beater here, one of our viewers, says, wow, I think that popped up when you were talking about the suitcase comment.
She may have been one of my families. Gina, was that you?
but the wow is just like, wow, that you would actually do that. And I think that's the thing that's fascinating to me, that to the extent that you do that, and how to me it's so interesting how unnatural it is. We'll talk about business owners for a second. Some business owners, and how it's natural for others. My wife has an eye for that, and she helped a local shop out, and and just the way people queued up in the line, to place an order. And then, of course, because Disney sells a little merchandise, how merchandise could be placed in that queue and how it increased the sales of the merchandise. All a part of it, and all a part of it. And Gina wants to make sure we know she goes to Disney a lot. So, there you go.
I bet we've probably studied her at one point
there
or another,
you go.
with or without her knowledge. But
all right, so I want to put the second model up there. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
So all this, we were talking about the L words and the lessons learned. So learning and listening, laughing, I'll come back to in a minute. Learn, listen. What that does is it fosters loyalty, because you have sent a message. Let's think about employees for a minute and employee engagement. You have sent a message to them. You're important enough for me to listen to. I trust you and have enough respect for you that I'm going to ask your opinion on things. And I'm basically taking you seriously. That kind of thing fosters loyalty. Loyalty to you as a leader, and loyalty to your company and to your culture, because it is a much more respectful and more trusting culture. Also, because you have done that, you've just bought yourself some leverage. And I don't mean that in a Machiavellian way, but the truth is, you now have leverage because you have just created emotional equity with these people. And if that's hard, emotional equity doesn't just come. You have to build it. It's just like investing in a relationship or in a marriage. Once you have that, you have a little more bandwidth, and they're going to be a little more willing to give you the benefit of the doubt when you want to make one of those risky decisions, or you do something that maybe didn't turn out the best. You're suddenly not like persona non grata because you've got a little equity in there.
Sure.
So that's why it's like all these L words they're just super important. The laugh I put in there because obviously I'm a laugher. When you deal with, first of all, I believe you should find joy in anything and everything that you can, whether it's your job, whether it's the people around you, whether it's what you do. But when you are joyful, when you are able to laugh at yourself, laugh at situations, it makes you human, and it makes you more relatable, and it quite honestly makes you more likable. And I'm not talking silly. I'm not talking silly, giggly laugh, but I'm, you know what I'm saying? It's just being willing to open your kimono to that side of yourself. And granted, there's a time and a place for everything. And it's not like you're going to stand up in a certain meeting and, burst into gales of laughter. When it's appropriate and it's like, I can't stifle it, that's probably a normal time to laugh, and it's okay. And I find that leaders or, people who do that, who can do that and do it appropriately, are so much happier in their jobs, and they get a lot more out of it, because they're, what does Lee say? Laughing also makes you more creative and helps you come up with better ideas. Exactly. And it also frees up people around you, right? When it's not quite so stuffy.
Right.
So yeah, those are my L words. There's others, but I think those are the big ones that hold true. They hold true across companies.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think the listening, the learning, the laughing, that's To me, those three are just so imperative to really a healthy organization. In fact, my personal opinion, everything you've just said, if you can't laugh at your organization, to me, there's just not something right about it. It's a human emotion that we all enjoy. It releases the endorphins. It's like Lee says, makes you more creative. There's so much to be said for laughter. And I love the leverage and the loyalty. Recap that for me again. So it comes through the funnel and it results in leverage and loyalty. So just hit that one more time. Tell me what that means and why that's important.
So when you are following that improvement cycle, when you are listening to people, when you are learning from people, when you are laughing with them about stuff, that fosters loyalty. So it helps to build that relationship, whether it's your consumer, your employee, whatever. So it's because it's trusting. You've now created the trust and this interaction that you would not have established if you didn't have respect for the people and if you didn't trust them. Those are key contributors to loyalty.
Yeah.
Because now you have that, you have leverage. It gives you power because you have created emotional equity by pulling on those, pulling those triggers of I trust you, I respect you, those kind of things.
It's not a manipulation thing. I mean, that's
no, it's not manipulating. It's just it's normal and it's natural.
Yeah.
It's a psychological fact kind of a thing. So but it's not like I'm doing this in order to get leverage, but it's like when I do, and by the way, people can smell the BS a mile away. So when you do this, they know if you're sincere or not. They know if you're genuine or not. And that does make a difference. When you are not sincere, when you're going through the motions, and I've seen that happen, you're not doing yourself any favors because people smell it. They can see it, they feel it.
It's the authenticity, right? I mean,
exactly.
You can't take a course on authenticity. Either you are or you aren't, I mean, you can, but, it's just me to be authentically who you are is, and that's why you say laughing comes easy because authentically that's who you are, and I think that's so important. Well, this has been incredible material. I want to, really, kind of take all this into the sphere of I have got this. I always, for some reason, use the 10 truck plumbing business or a retail store with half a dozen employees, or I don't know, a restaurant. One of those situations. How do I apply? I'm going to put the two models up here. How do I apply these models to the environments like that? I'm not running a Disney World. I'm not running a Disney corporation, but yet I want to take Candy Park's theories and I want to boil those down to my little business. How do I best apply those?
Well, I mean, I can give you an example. I worked with a family restaurant startup in a nearby town, and they had scads of experience. And by the way, this restaurant is in a historical landmark, so there was a lot of other stuff wrapped around it. They had a lot of experience in food and beverage, and they knew they had a certain way they wanted things done, and they were at a particular price point. When they started, they're like, we're not sure of something. We're not entirely sure we're firing on all the cylinders we need to be, but we're not really sure what it is we need. So basically, I was like, well, let's just take a look, So my first step was immersion, right? So I take my family, my, son and his wife, my husband, and we go and we just have a normal experience. I don't tell them when I'm going. I try to make a reservation. I show up. I have all the normal interactions, take tons of pictures with my phone, and then got back, put together a quick little thing. And I spent a ton of time online, looking at their menus and what they were showing online. And I came back and I put together a little report. And I said, all right, you're in a historical landmark and the stories are fascinating and nobody tells them. That's a huge miss. And oh, by the way, your hostess who stands out front she spends all of her time complaining that she's hot and she needs fan. And that's my first impression.
Wow.
And chit-chatting with the waiters who are coming in and out to figure out what's going on in their station. I'm like, okay, first of all, this should be that setup should be in the back. There's no way they should be coming up and doing it. So it's like you uncover a lot of little things. And so then that was like just from my immersion. And then and they really wanted to do this themselves. I'm like, do you have performance standards? No. Okay, you need to start with your employees and then ask them these things about the customers, because they know what's going on with the customers, what's working, what's not. And the employees are like, we have an issue with the kitchen setup. We can't get the line out quick enough because of the way it's set up. And it was an architectural limitation.
Right.
So it was like every little service problem they were having came from the design of the kitchen. And so then it's like, okay, what are you going to do? Because you can't change it.
Right.
And so they had to basically rethink, all right, well, what if we flipped our ovens? What if we changed this? What if we whatever? But they didn't realize the problem was in the line until the server said, okay, I thought we were telling you that, and that's why we couldn't get it out, but you weren't hearing us.
Yeah.
You weren't listening to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it tends to, in a smaller company, it tends to be more organic, I think is the word I would use. Mm-hmm. And it can be a little more compact, right? Because you're not going to do something formal. You're probably going to, my brother-in-law runs a plumbing company and they have their morning meeting, and it's through those chit chats and whatnot that all kinds of stuff comes up. And it's like learning what to listen for and what kind of questions to ask. And so sometimes it's not formal, and sometimes it's not even something you pay for. But sometimes, you need to actually get the right people in to study something.
Yeah. Makes total sense.
It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg.
No, but but the thing is, you're part of a group, the MagicMakers group, consulting group, that you can help businesses with some of these problems. And I think it's worth taking a look for a second at what we're talking about. This is the MagicMakers group that you're a part of, and the group is comprised of former Disney executives, people that helped solve problems at Disney that are now ready to help you solve problems as well. So what kinds of clients? I mean, I'm looking at, I don't really need to ask. It's right there on the screen. There's all kinds of things to work with. But tell me just a bit about the MagicMakers group and how it came together, and why people should call.
Oh my gosh. I tell you, I am over the moon about the MagicMakers group. They are probably the singular most spectacular collection of superpowers I've ever seen. So, I mean, as a researcher, I can go in and learn stuff and then put together, here's what you need to do. Here's I can recommend to them what they need to do, but it's up to them, the company, to then implement it or take action. And sometimes they just don't know how. That's why being affiliated with the MagicMakers is so incredible, because there's every kind of talent. Oh, you need marketing help? We got somebody for that. You need safety and crisis management, PR? We got somebody for that. You need operations? You need experience design? Yeah, we've got that. Industrial engineering, a problem for you? You need to, optimize your operation? Yeah, we've got that. Wow. You need HR, learning and development? Yeah, we got that too. You want to broadcast? You're having broadcast issues? We got that. We have, and by the way, we don't just got that. We have experts. So, sometimes when people read, oh, they've got these Disney executives, they probably sat in their cushy offices. No, these are people who did it. These are people who are experts in the field. They don't just talk to you. They roll up their sleeves and get in and do it with you. You're building a retail place, you want a Tony Mancini in there with you, telling you how to lay it out. You're working on product development. You want a Jane Debbie Shmai, you want a Dara Trujillo in there going, here's how you ought to think about this. Right. So, these are people who have done it. Yeah. They've opened resorts, they've opened theme parks around the world. And then after leaving Disney, they have run major companies. They have, I mean, these are people who are practitioners. They're not just talking heads.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's amazing about them. So, for example, Cal was working on a project and he's like, oh, there's an insights piece of that. Boom, bring Candy in. If I'm working on a project, I'm like, wow, there's a huge operational piece. Ooh, I need Robert and Scott in here now, or I need a Barry Jacobson because there's a huge luxury aspect of this. He's the guy for that. So it's like we all do our own things.
Yeah.
But we're all available to each other to work together on projects.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the other thing I think that's really great, and this is kudos to Cal and Rob, the founders who put the group together. I mean, these are all super smart, talented people, self-excluded. I'm the unicorn. But I mean, these are incredible people. And a lot of times you put that many incredible people together and it ain't pretty, right? These are like nice people and they play well in the sandbox, and everybody, first of all, I think everybody's secure enough in their own talent base, but they also respect what everybody brings to the table. And, nobody's, pardon French, but nobody's like trying to pee on their turf. It's like it is such a collegial bunch, very professional, very smart. Oh, the brainstorming sessions, you put some of those people together, it's like, it's steroids, it's scary, the kind of stuff, because the life experiences, the work experiences, the history, you will not find another combination of people like that. I feel like I died and went to heaven, because it's like, I don't care what research project I'm working on. I know I got somebody, it's like, and so can come, by the way, and do this for you. You don't have to figure it out. They will just come do it for you, and then you can take it over. You need performance standards. Yeah, we can create those, train them, and help you figure out how to measure them. It's like, so that's Magic Makers. That's my
that's incredible. And you've been called by Lee the best unicorn ever. So there you go. Good. Well, Candy, it is such a delight to talk to you. You're such a burst of energy. I mean, I love it. I hope you'll come back and we can talk about some more of what you learned. And I think also one of the things we're talking about, I know Barry and Lee and I have talked about it, is having the Magic Maker panel one day where we get maybe 3 of you.
Yeah. We could do that. That would be fun.
I think that'd be a blast.
Again, we like each other and we play off each other well. And
I'd love to feature that dynamic of all of you together, and maybe we'll throw a problem at you or something. But this has been great. Well, listen, I want to respect your time. I've kept you for 45 minutes. My goodness, it feels like 5. But I hope you can hang around for a minute backstage. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience here, and I want to give you a proper goodbye.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. This was fun.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And but before you go, I want to ask you, the best way for someone to get in touch with you is it through the Magic Makers Group? Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah, through the Magic Makers Group, through LinkedIn, those are the main things. Because I am an independent consultant. I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to go out and really market, so I don't have a website. But you can always get me through LinkedIn or through Magic Makers Group.
Okay, and it's just Candy Parks on LinkedIn. Nothing fancy.
Just Candy Parks, nothing fancy. Nope.
Good
just
deal.
Me.
This guy keeps showing up here. Ask Candy about her prowess in the Moderator challenge. She is the queen. All right. I gotta ask, because
oh my God, I'm turning 40 shades of red.
My goodness.
So a Moderator challenge. So when you're doing focus groups and like doing groups at Disney, I'm in the room as the moderator. I'm in the room with the respondents, and then the back room behind the two-way glass are various people from Disney. And so depending on what the project is, it could be a couple people, it could be an army of people. And if you're doing multiple groups, especially multiple groups in multiple cities, you start to get slap happy after the second city or, 5th group or whatever. And the back room would give me a quote moderator challenge. And so it's a word, it's a phrase, it's a song, it's something I have to work into the group without my respondents knowing, so, and they would give me stuff like, some of them were easy, like the phrase pink and purple polka dots, but it was a pricing study, so it's like, or I would have to sing first, sing a lick of, I can't remember which song, and I want to say it may have been Lee Kitchen who gave me that challenge. I had to bust in, and first of all, I have no singing voice. I don't sing well. I had to bust into song with it's like some rock tune. and it's like, and it was like the challenge. And then, if there was another, and I don't think I ever had one that I didn't do. I think I pulled every one of them off. But there was one, I just remember that the back room erupted so badly. I swear the glass shook. They were laughing. And then the respondents are like, and I'm thinking, okay, ethically, this is so inappropriate. So then I had to tell them, I'm like, look, you didn't do anything.
At this, and it's that's great. Well, it's just so much fun, and I'm kind of sorry I missed the moderator challenge now that I've heard about it. But again, I hope you'll come back sometime. I'd love to talk more about all this. I just
sure, anytime.
Yeah,
thank you.
All right, thanks for being here. I'm gonna have you head backstage, and I'm saying goodbye to the audience. So thanks. Well, what an absolute blast to have Candy here today. I reached for this before. I got to tell you, this little guy right here, I've got two of them. One's back there, unfortunately, has been repaired because my grandson and granddaughter reached for them. But I always say this is the best little deal in Walt Disney World. I love this. It's really designed to be a baby toy, but it's a great Mickey thing, and it's something I treasure a great deal. When I look around my office, sometimes I realize how kooky I am. I'm drinking out of, didn't even realize, a Vision mug that my daughter got me at Disney World. We mentioned Lee Cockrell. Before I go, I want to just throw something up on the screen. 3 books by Lee that you might be interested in helping some of this. One is Creating Magic by Lee Cockrell. It's a great book. The Customer Rules by Lee Cockrell, which is, again, some of what Candy was just talking about. And then finally, Time Management Magic, which is a great book as well for some basic time, not more beyond basic time management hit. So we'll have Lee on here soon, I hope. I'll have to reach out to him. But with that, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Candy is just absolutely amazing. I will be back again with you tomorrow. We're continuing our human resources series with getting hired. So tomorrow is a day about what career you're looking for in the future. So join us tomorrow here at 2:00 Eastern time. Catherine Miller is going to be back. She's got some fun stuff planned for you. Until then, have a great day, and I'll see you again here tomorrow on Al Getler Live. Take care.